the bell in the field. There was a stretch of land behind the village that nobody crossed anymore. It wasn't fenced, nor forbidden. Just avoided. It began with an empty road, softened by moss and time, then opened into a field that seemed too flat, too quiet, too still. A single dead tree stood in its center, gnarled and blackened, like lightning had touched it once and then forgotten it. Beneath its boughs, half sunken in the earth, sat a bell. Not rusted, not cracked. Just waiting. Edith had come to the village to be alone. She rented a cottage at the edge of town, ivy-covered and tucked behind tall hedges, and planned to spend the autumn in solitude. Her friends called it running away. She called it retreating inward. The quiet soothed her, and the small routines of rural life were comforting. But her dreams grew stranger, even in the silence. They often ended with the soft sound of ringing, low and distant, like something deep underground was being stirred. The villagers didn't speak much about the field. When Edith asked the baker, she only said, "It's best not to go that way." When she asked the postman, he smiled politely and changed the subject. It wasn't fear, exactly. More like weariness. As if the place had been forgotten on purpose. One day, under a pale gray sky, Edith walked the long road past the cottages, past the orchard, and into the old field. The grass there was strangely short, as though it never grew past a certain height. There were no birds. No crickets. Only the soft hush of wind bending the stalks. The tree stood in the center, sharp against the sky, every branch bare. And under it, the bell. It wasn't large, perhaps the size of a basin, but it was made of a smooth, dark metal. It had no markings, no rope or clapper. Yet it looked complete. Whole. And for reasons she couldn't name, Edith sat beside it. The field was warmer near the bell. Or perhaps the stillness made it feel that way. The air didn't move. The sky didn't change. Time felt paused. She placed a hand on the bell's surface. It was cool and solid beneath her fingers. Then, just barely, it hummed. Not a sound. A sensation. A vibration, like something stirring in her chest, not her ears. She pulled her hand away quickly. The field remained quiet. But the hum lingered inside her, like the echo of a song half remembered. That night, Edith dreamed of the tree. It stood taller than before. The bell beneath it glowed faintly, casting a blue light that shimmered on the grass. She watched from a distance, unable to move. Something was watching her, from within the tree's hollow. She woke before it stepped out. She didn't go back the next day. Nor the next. But the dreams continued. The tree always larger. The light always brighter. And now the bell was ringing, not loud, but steady, deep, as if it had found its voice. And still, no one in the village spoke of it. One evening, as dusk folded over the hills, she walked to the field again. The wind had stopped. The sky was heavy, cloudless, soft with dim light. The tree looked the same, still dead, still waiting. But the bell had risen slightly from the earth, just enough to show the full curve of its base. Something had changed. Edith sat again beside it. And this time, she whispered, "What are you?" The bell did not answer. But beneath her palm, it pulsed once. She began to visit daily. She didn't tell anyone. The bell never moved, never spoke, but it welcomed her somehow. The field became a second home, a place untouched by the noise of the world. Her thoughts quieted there. Her heartbeat slowed. And the more she sat, the more she began to hear things, not aloud, but within. Old stories. Names she'd never known. Moments from lives long past. Each time she left the field, she remembered less of them. But the feeling stayed. A strange peace. Laced with something more. Then, one morning, the bell rang. Just once. It wasn't loud. Not startling. more like a low chime rolling through the soil, through her bones. She turned to look, but no one else in the village reacted. They hadn't heard it. Only her. She tried to ask the grocer again, but the woman only said, "You've been going there, haven't you?" Edith nodded. The woman sighed. Some things want to be remembered. And then she said nothing more. That night, Edith dreamed of the bell again. But this time, the field was gone. There was only the tree, floating in blackness, and the bell beneath it, ringing endlessly without sound. She walked toward it, slowly, as if drawn by something old and familiar. When she touched the bell, everything stopped. And she awoke with tears on her face. In the days that followed, the wind stopped coming. The birds grew silent. And the sky took on a silvery hue that never shifted, not quite day, not quite night. She returned to the field one last time. The bell was now fully above the ground. Waiting. She sat beside it. Closed her eyes. And listened. She never left the field. Not entirely. Her cottage stood empty the next week, door ajar, dishes washed, candles burned low. No sign of struggle. No sign of travel. Just the lingering smell of autumn and a faint ring that echoed through the floorboards. The bell still sits beneath the tree. And though few go near, they say sometimes, when the wind dies completely and the sky goes still, you can hear it hum. Not in your ears, but in your bones. As if it remembers someone. Or waits for someone else to sit beside it. And listen. The lantern by the marsh. There's a marsh just beyond the woods, where the ground softens and the trees begin to bend inward like they're leaning close to listen. It isn't a place people go. Not because it's dangerous, but because it's quiet in a way that feels unnatural. The kind of silence that presses on your chest and hums behind your ears. No paths cross it. No signs point toward it. Most people forget it's even there. But it waits, all the same. And sometimes, on misty nights when the wind holds its breath, a small lantern flickers among the reeds. Iris found the cottage by accident. It had been listed in the back pages of an old directory. A 2-room house near the woods, meant for writing retreats or personal reflection. It came with no internet, no cell signal, and one oil lamp that needed filling every other day. She wanted quiet. She wanted to be somewhere without memory. And the cottage gave her that. At first. The marsh was behind the cottage, past a line of twisted trees and a low stone wall covered in moss. Iris noticed it on her second morning, the fog curling up from it like steam from a forgotten cup of tea. She walked the edge, boots sinking slightly in the soft earth. The reeds grew tall there, some nearly to her shoulders. The air smelled of water and something faintly metallic. And through the haze, she saw the glow of a lantern. Small. Warm. Flickering gently in the stillness. It wasn't unusual, she told herself. Someone could be walking. A caretaker, maybe. Or a local. But the lantern didn't move. It hung at the same height, just out of reach, just far enough to blur into the fog if she stepped toward it. She stood for several minutes, watching. Then turned back. That night, she lit the oil lamp in the cottage and sat by the window. No cars passed on the narrow road. No owls called from the woods. Only the steady drip of condensation from the roof and the quiet tick of the clock on the wall. She almost forgot about the lantern. Until she saw its glow through the trees again. This time, closer. She didn't sleep deeply. Her dreams were filled with soft light and slow footsteps across damp ground. A shadow passed the edge of her vision again and again. Each time, she turned to face it, and each time, it wasn't there. When she woke, the floorboards felt cold. And the lamp beside her bed was empty. The third day was windless. The trees did not rustle. The birds did not sing. She returned to the marsh before noon, drawn not by curiosity but by a pull she couldn't name. The fog was thicker now, clinging to her sleeves and eyelashes like webbing. Again, the lantern waited. Not swaying. Not swinging. Just glowing. She stepped closer this time. 1 foot after another, careful not to slip. The water near her boots was calm, like glass. She thought she could see her own reflection, but it didn't mimic her movements exactly. And when she looked back toward the lantern, it was gone. The fog had swallowed it. That night, she did not light the lamp. She sat in the dark, listening. The reeds outside brushed gently against the window panes. A soft tapping came from the back wall. Once. Twice. Then silence. In the morning, her boots were wet. They sat by the door, where she'd left them, but the soles were caked in fresh mud. The laces were damp. Her coat, too, had drops of water on the sleeves, as though she'd been outside during the night. But she hadn't. Had she? She walked again to the marsh. Not quickly. Not slowly. The light was there before she reached it. And this time, it moved. Not toward her, but sideways, deeper into the reeds. She followed. Not far, just a few steps. The sound of her breath louder than the windless air. The reeds pressed close around her, their edges soft and damp. The light paused once, then vanished behind a thin veil of fog. She didn't chase it. Not then. That evening, as the sky turned to ash, she found something on the porch. An old lantern. Not lit. Not cold. Its glass was fogged from the inside, and the handle was warm to the touch. She brought it in. Set it on the table. And didn't look at it again until morning. The fog did not lift that day. Or the day after. The light no longer waited at the marsh. But the feeling remained, the pull. The sense of being gently guided, step by step, toward something she already half remembered. Each night, she dreamed of the lantern. Sometimes, it floated in water. Sometimes, it stood in the doorway. Always, it was lit. Always, it was waiting. One night, the wind returned. It shook the shutters gently, like someone asking to come inside. The cottage walls creaked as though exhaling. And Iris, without knowing why, opened the door. Fog poured in like smoke. She stepped outside. Lantern in hand. The marsh welcomed her. The reeds parted. The path was easy. And there, in the center of the water, stood a small wooden platform. Old. Crooked. But dry. She walked across the soft grass until her boots touched wood. Placed the lantern down. And waited. They say the marsh is quiet still, that some nights, you can see a lantern glowing gently among the reeds. It never moves, but it waits, and if you follow it long enough, you'll find a place that remembers everything you've tried to forget. A light that flickers not to show the way out, but the way in.